Chillingsworth, all about passion. Chillingsworth is a friend of Devil's. You've seen Devil through all the previous books if you've read them with me. And he's a sparring partner. Him and Devil like to insult each other as friends. Nothing serious kind of things, but those little cute jabs between sort of rivals, sort of friends kind of situation. August 1820. Good evening, my lord. Your uncle has called. He's waiting you in the library. Giles Frederick Rawlings, 5th Earl of Chillingworth, paused in the act of divesting himself of his greatcoat, then shrugged and let the heavy coat fall into his butler's waiting hands. Indeed. I understand Lord Walpole will shortly return to Lowbourne Castle. He wondered if you had any messages for the Dowager Countess. In other words, Giles murmured, resettling his cuffs, he wants the latest gossip, and knows better than to return to Mamma and my aunt without it. As you say, my lord. In addition, Waring called earlier on ascending that you were returning this evening. He left word that he would hold himself ready to wait on your lordship at his earliest convenience. Thank you, Irving. Giles strode into the front hall. Behind him, the front door quietly shut, propelled by a silent footman, pausing in the middle of the green and white tiles. Giles glanced back at Irving, waiting for a picture of patience in his butler's black Summon Waring. Giles turned down the hall. Send a footman with the carriage, given it's so late. Immediately, my lord. Another well-trained footman opened the door. Giles walked in the door. The door closed behind him. His uncle Horace Walpole was sitting on the chaise, legs stretched out, a half-empty brandy balloon in one hand. He cracked one eye open, then opened both, and sat up. There you are, my boy. I was wondering if you'd have to go newsless and considering what would be safe to concoct. Giles crossed to the Tantalus. I believe I can spare you imagination. I'm expecting Waring shortly. That new man of business of yours. Giles nodded. Glass in hand, he crossed to his favorite armchair and sank in its leather-cushioned comfort. He's been looking into a small matter to me. Oh, which matter? Who I should marry. Who should he marry? He's been hanging out with the Cynsters. Devils got married, scandals gotten married, Vane's got married, demons gotten married, Lucifer's gotten married. They've all gotten married and he's been to all these weddings, so he's getting the marriage bug. Hell's bells, you're serious. Marriage is not a subject on which I should jest. Glad to hear it. Horace took a sip of his brandy. Henny said you'd be making a move in that direction, but I really didn't think you would. Well, not yet. Giles hid a wary smile. Horace had been his guardian since his father's death. He'd been 7 at the time of his sire's demise, so it was Horace who guided him through the adolescence and youth. Despite that, he could still surprise Horace. His Aunt Henrietta, Henny to all, was another matter. She seemed to know instinctively what he was thinking on all major issues, even though he was here in London while she resided at the principal estate in Berkshire. As for his mother, also at Lamberton Castle, he had been long grateful that she kept her perception to herself. It's not as if marriage is something I can avoid. There is that, Horace conceded. Osbert at the next Earl is not something any of us could stomach, at least of all Osbert. So great Aunt Millicent regularly informs me. Giles nodded at the large desk further down the room. That letter there, the thick one, there'll be another missive demanding I do my duty by the family, pick a suitable chit and marry with all speed. One arrives every week without fail. Horace pulled a face. And of course, every time I cross out Osbert's past, he looks at me as if I'm his only possible salvation. Well, you are. If you don't marry and beget an heir, he'll be for it. And Osbert's in charge of the earldom is entirely too depressing a thought to contemplate. Horace drained his glass. Still, I wouldn't have thought you'd let old Millicent and Osbert jockey into you marrying to please them. Perish the thought. But if you must know, I'm sure Henny will want to. I intend to marry entirely to suit myself. I'm 35 after all. Further denying the inevitable will only make the adjustment more painful. I'm set in my ways as it is. Horace grimaced and gave him his glass. Devilish business, marriage. Take my word for it. Sure isn't all these Cynsters married that niggled you into the plunge? Yes, 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 yes. That's where I was today, at Summersham. There was a family gathering to show off all the new wives and infants. If I needed any demonstration of the validity of your thesis, today would have provided it. Refilling his glass, Giles pushed aside the prickling presentiment evoked by his old friend Devil Cynster's latest infernal machinations. Devil and the others elected me an honorary Cynster. How dare they elect me an honorary Cynster, an honorary member of the family? We're supposed to be giving each other friendly jibes, and they made me an honorary member. Turning from the Tantalus, he handed Horace his glass. Then he resumed his seat. I pointed out that while we might share countless characteristics, I am not and never will be a Cynster. He would not marry for love. That fate, as he assured Devil for years, would never be his. Every Cynster male seemed unavoidably to succumb, jettisoning rakish careers of legendary proportions for love and the arms of one special lady. There had been 6 in the group, particularly known as the Bar Cynster, and now all were wed, all exclusively and unanswering focused on their wives and their growing families. If there was within him a spark of envy, he made sure it was buried deep. The price that they'd paid was not the one he could afford. Horace snorted. Love matches are the Cynster's forte. Seems to be all the rage these days, but take my word for it, an arranged marriage has a lot to recommend it. My thoughts exactly. Earlier this summer, I set Warren the task of investigating all the likely candidates to see which, if any, had dower properties that would materially add to the earldom. Properties? If one is not marrying for love, one may marry for something else, he says. And he wanted a reason for his choice, so whichever lady he ultimately offered for would entertain no illusion over what had made him drop his handkerchief in her lap. My instructions were that the future countess be sufficiently well-bred, docile, endowed with at least passable grace of form, deportment, and address. Jesus! I'm giving you a list. She's got to be pretty. She's got to be gracious. She's got to know how to be a host. She's got to be this. She's got to be that. She's got to be this. And maybe she can be pretty too. Um, a lady who could stand by his side, impede on his conscience, not at all. A well-bred cipher who would bear his children and disrupt his lifestyle minimally. Giles sipped. As it happened, I also asked Waring to trace the current ownership of the Gating property. The Gating property had one time been part of the Lambourne estate. Without it, the Earldom principal estate was like a pie with a slice missing. Regaining the Gatlin lands had been an ambition of Giles' father and his father before him. In pursuing the owner, Waring discovered that the deed had passed to some distant Rawlings. Then, on his demise, into the dowry of his daughter, presently of marriageable age. The information Warren is apparently anxious to impart concerns the daughter. Of marriageable age? Is she? Giles inclined his head. At the chime of the front door pealed through the house. A moment later the door opened. Mr. Waring, my lord. Thank you, Irving. Waring, a heavy-set man in his early 30s, with a round face and close-cropped hair, entered. Giles waved him to the armchair opposite. You met Lord Walpole. Can I offer you a drink? Thank you, my lord. No. I knew how keen you were to pursue the matter, so I took the liberty of leaving a message. I take it you have news? Come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on, tell the news, tell the news, tell the news. I have. As we heard, the gentleman and his household reside permanently in Italy. Apparently, both parents, Gerald Rawlings and his wife Katrina, perished together. Subsequently, the daughter Francesca Hermone Rawlings returned to England and joined the household of her uncle and her guardian, Sir Charles Rawling, in Hampshire. I've been trying to recall, Giles swallowed his breath. Were they Charles and Gerard, the sons of Francis Rawling? Indeed, Francis Rawling was the grandfather of the lady in question. Francesca Hermone Rawlings considered, and the lady herself? That proved easier than expected. The family entertained extensively. Any member of the ton through northern Italy would have met them. I've descriptions from Lady Kenilworth, Lady Foxmartin, Lady Lucas, and the Countess of Morplease. What's the verdict? A delightful young lady, pleasant, well-favored, a most amusing creature. That was old Lady Kenilworth. A gentlewoman of excellent breeding, so said the Countess. Who said well-favored? Actually, all of them said that, or words to the effect. Warren glanced at his written accounts and then offered them to Giles. If you put them together, they spell paragon. He handed the reports to Horace. What of the rest? The young lady now 23 years old, but there's no record, no rumor of any marriage. Indeed, the ladies I spoke with had lost sight of Miss Rawlings. Although most were familiar with the tragedy of her parents' death and aware of her return to England, none have seen her since. That seems strange, so I followed it up. Miss Rawlings is residing with her uncle at Rawlings Hall near Lyndhurst, but I haven't been able to locate anyone presently in the capital who has met the lady, her guardian, or any member of the household in the past few years. So she's elusive. She's a secretive person. She's out in the country. Um, if you wish, I could send a man to assess the situation locally, discreetly, of course. No, I'll do it myself. He glanced at Horace. There are some benefits to being the head of the family. After commending Warren for his excellent work, Giles saw him into the front hall. Horace followed. He left on Warren's heels, stating his intention to return to Lambourne Castle the next day. The front door closed. Giles turned and climbed the stairs. The next day, he drove into Hampshire the next morning, reaching Lyndhurst in the early afternoon. He turned in under the sign of Lyndhurst Arms. Bespeaking rooms there, he left his tiger Maxwell in charge of settling his grays. Hiring a good-looking chestnut hunter, he set up for Rawlings Hall. According to the garrulous innkeeper, Giles' distant kin, Sir Charles Rawling, lived in a reclusive life in the depths of the New Forest. Nevertheless, the road to the hall was well graded, and the gates, when Giles came to them, stood open. He stood in the chestnut hooves, beating a regular tattoo along the gravel drive. The trees thinned and gave way to an extensive lawn surrounding a house of faded red brick, some sections garbled, some other battlements with a low tower at one end. None of the buildings was new, not even Georgian. Rawlings Hall was well looked after, but unostentatious. Good afternoon, sir. May I help you? The Earl of Chillingworth, I wish to see Sir Charles Rawling. To give him credit, the butler blinked only once. Indeed, sir, my lord, if you will step this way, I'll advise Sir Charles of your arrival. Shown into the drawing room, Giles prowled, his impatience fueled by inexplicable sense of being just one step ahead of fate. Devil's fault. Of course, even being an honorary Cynster was tempting fate too far. The door opened. Giles swung around as a gentleman entered, an older, softer, more careworn version of himself, with the same rangy build, the same chestnut brown hair. Despite the fact that he was not previously met Charles Rawlings, Giles would have instantly recognized him as a Rellington. Chillingsworth. Well, Charles blinked. Welcome, my lord. What do we owe this pleasure? Francesca? They repaired to the privacy of the Charles study after seeing Giles to a comfortable chair. Charles subsided into one beside his desk. I'm sorry, I don't see what interest you may have in her. As to that, I am not certain, but my dilemma, shall we say, is common enough. As head of the family, I am expected to wed. In any case, it is something of a necessity. Given its most serious necessity, I beget myself an heir. Have you met Osbert Rawlings? Osbert, is he Henry's son? Isn't he the one who wants to be a poet? He did want to be a poet. Now he is a poet, and indefinitely worse. Good Lord. Never knows what to do with his hands. That's Osbert. You can see why the family are counting on me to do my duty. To do him justice, Osbert himself is terrified I won't. He'll have to step into my shoes. I can't imagine. Even as a lad, he had limp wool for backbone. Therefore, having reached the age of 35, I am engaged into looking about for a wife. And you thought of Francesca? Before we discuss particulars, I wish to make one point. I'm looking for an amendable bride willing to engage in an arranged marriage. You mean a marriage of convenience? Perhaps you'd better explain what you're seeking. I wish to contract an arranged marriage with a lady of suitable breeding and comportment to fill the role of my countess and provide me and the family with heirs we require. What is this, a business deal? What is he, negotiations? I am hardly a pauper after all. I need a suitable countess. Jesus. So I understand. However, with the exception of the deed to the Gatling property, which I wish to return to the Lambourne estate, her various inheritance will remain hers to do with as she please. That's very generous of you to let her keep her own stuff. I have to admit that marriage was arranged after a moment. I fear I must ask, cousin, is there any particular reason you're so intent your marriage to be an arranged one? If you mean, do I have a mistress of long standing with whom I do not wish to set aside or something of that nature, the answer is no. The reason I wish to keep my marriage very aspect of it on a business-like footing is because I have absolutely no patience with the concept of love in a marriage. It's a highly overrated circumstance, one moreover which I desire no closer acquaintance. I do not wish my prospective wife to entertain the notion that I offer love, either now or some rosy-hued future. From the first, I want her to know that love is not part of our equation. I see no benefit in raising the prospect, and will do insist that my intent is made clear from the outset. Yeah, you say so now, but you haven't even seen her yet. And I'll bet you anything it's love at first sight. Ha, ha, ha. Cynster curse. You're an honorary Cynster. So you got the Cynster curse. You're cursed with the Cynster falling in love with his bride. Ha, ha, ha. Chillingsworth. You wait till Devil finds out. He's gonna jab you forever. Um, uh, see. Very well. I now understand what you're seeking, but why consider Francesca? Because of the Gatling property. It was centuries ago a dower property indeed. It was probably the reason for an arranged marriage back then. The property completes the circle of my Lambourne lands. It should never have been separated, but because it wasn't part of the entail, some misguided ancestor bequeathed it to a younger son, and that became something of a tradition. Gerard was the elder, wasn't he? How is it you inherited this place and then he inherited Gatling? My father. He fell out with Jared as it happens because Jared refused to marry as he arranged. Jared married for love and went to Italy, while I made the arranged marriage your brother refused. So Papa reorganized his will. Jared got the Gatling property, which I should have received, and I got the hall. Jared didn't give a damn. Even after Papa died, he remained in Italy. Until he died. How did that happen? A boating accident on Lake Lugano one night. No one knew until the next day. Both Gerard and Katrina drowned. And so Francesca came to you. She's been with us for nearly 2 years. How would you describe her? Francesca? She's a wonderful girl, a breath of fresh air and a beam of sunshine in one. It's odd, though. She's quite lovely. She's also restful, a contradiction, I know, but Charles looked at Giles. I understand she's 23. Is there some reason she hasn't married? Not specifically. Prior to their death, Gerard and Katrina and Francesca discussed addressing the question of a husband more seriously, but the accident intervened. Francesca was adamant on observing the full period of mourning. She was an only child and greatly attached to her parents. So it was only a year or so that she started going about. For reasons for which I won't burden you, we don't entertain. Francesca attends the assemblies and local dances under the auspices of Lady Willingdon, one of our neighbors. What? For the past year, Francesca has been actively looking for a husband. It was at her request that I solicited the help of Lady Willingdon. Has she met anyone she considers suitable? No, indeed, I believe she's quite despondent over finding any suitable prospect locally. Indelicate question though it is, do you think your niece might find me suitable? Charles' brief smile was right. From all I've heard, if you wish her to find you suitable, you could sweep away any naive young lady off her feet. Unfortunately, in this case, using that particular talents might prove counterproductive. I want an amenable bride, not a besotted one. True, but you might have to compromise, Chillingworth. You might have to, think about falling in love once you see her. Um, do you know of any reason that would argue against Francesca Rawlings, the next Countess of Chillingworth? Absolutely none, Charles says. Francesca would fill the position in admiration of the family. Charles held his gaze a moment longer than nodded. Very well. In that case, I'd like to make a formal offer for you for your niece's hand. Just like that? Don't you want to meet her first? Don't you want to at least see her? I'll send for her. No, you forget, I wish this matter to be treated with the utmost formality. I want to make it clear, not only by word but by deed, that this is an arranged marriage, nothing more. Your description of your niece confirms the opinions of the grand dames of the time richly experienced in evaluating the marriageable young ladies. Everyone declares Francesca Rawlings an exceptional party. I need no further assurances. Jesus! You should at least see the girl. Don't you want to at least see what she looks like for yourself before you agree to marriage? Lord Chillingworth, I just dropped my. You got nerve, man. At least see the girl. Good Lord. This freaking hair is killing him. Who does he at least let the girl see him? At least think of her point of view. Very well, if it's your wish, if you'll give me the details, I'll speak with Francesca this evening. I better write it down. While he was ready, Giles dictated and Charles transcribed the formal offer of a marriage contract between the Earl of Chillingworth and Francesca Harmony Rawlings. As Charles scribbled the last of the settlements, Giles mused, "It might be as well not to mention the relationship, distant as it is. It's not of any particular relevance. I prefer that the offer was specifically made as coming from the Earl. It won't hurt. Women like titles. Good. If there's no further information you need, I'll leave you. I was going to insist you stay with us, or at least dine. Perhaps another time. I'm staying at the Lyndhurst Arms, should you need to reach me. I'll discuss this with Francesca this evening, and I'll call upon you tomorrow morning to hear her answer. One last impertinence. You mentioned your marriage was an arrangement. Tell me, were you happy?" "Yes, we were." "Then you know Francesca has nothing to fear in the arrangement I propose." There had been pain in Charles' eyes. Giles knew Charles was a widower. He hadn't anticipated the death of feelings. Charles had clearly felt the loss of his wife keenly. A chill touched the nape. Giles stepped into the hall. Giles followed. They shook hands, then the butler arrived. Giles followed him back through the house. As they neared the front of the hall, the butler murmured, "I'll just send the footman for your horse, my lord." They stepped into the hall to find no footman in sight, but the green baize door at the hall's end swung wildly. A second later, a shrieking scullery maid raced out. She ignored Giles and rushed for the butler. "Oh, Mr. Blewett, you've got to come quick. There's a shook loose in the kitchen. Cook's chasing it with a cleaver, but it won't stand still." "I do apologize, my lord. I will get help." "Don't worry, I'll find my way. But the sound of it, you'd better settle things in the kitchen if you want any dinner tonight." "Thank you, my lord. The stable lad will have your horse ready." Before he could say more, he was dragged away. Giles heard scolding the maid as they went through the swinging doors. Stepping through the archway, he paused. An intersecting path ran right and left. Glancing toward the house, he discovered he could see all the way to where the stone wall he'd earlier paced along joined the corner of the house. Close by a house, a stone seat was built from the wall. On the seat sat a young lady. She was reading a book lying open in her lap. The late afternoon sun beamed down, bathing her in golden light. Fair hair the color of flax was drawn from her face. Fair, close, faintly skinned. From this distance he could see her eyes, yet the general set of her features appeared unremarkable low, suggested she was a woman easily dominated, naturally submissive. She was not the sort of woman to stir him at all, not the sort of woman he would normally take the time to study. She was precisely the sort of wife he was looking for. Could she be Francesca Rawlings? If some higher power had heard his thought, a woman's voice called, Francesca. The girl looked up, shutting her book. Francesca, Franny, I'm here, Aunt Esther. Stepping out, she disappeared from Giles' view. Giles smiled and resumed the stroll. He trusted Charles and Charles not to deceive him. Francesca Rawlings possessed precisely the right aptitudes to be his amendable bride. The path opened onto the grassy courtyard. Giles stepped into it. A dervish in emerald green did her best to mow him down. She landed against him like a force of nature, a small woman barely topping his shoulder. His impression was of wild black hair, curling riotously over her shoulders and back. The emerald green was a velvet riding habit. She was booted and carried a crop in one hand. He caught her, steadied her. She could have fallen if he hadn't closed his arms about her. Even before she caught her breath, his hands had gentle. His rakish senses avidly relayed the fact that she was abundant curvaceous. Her flesh firm yet yielding, consequently female for him, elementing challenging. His hand spread over her back, then his arms locked, but likely trapping her against him. Full breast warmed against his chest. Soft hips sighed. How? You're a stranger. I just ran into this handsome stranger. I'm sorry, I didn't see you coming. His willing senses, like recognized, like in the blink of an eye. Oh yes, the beast sighed and purred. His lips curved subtly, although his thoughts were anything but. If you would release me, sir. He didn't want to, but he did. Slowly, with deliberately obvious reluctance. She felt more than good in his arms. She felt warm and intensely vital, intensely alive. Who are you? Chillingsworth, and very definitely at your service. I'm late. Their gazes held something primitive arched between them, some promise that needed no words to be made. Her gaze slid from his, traveling avidly, greedily over him, as if she would commit him to memory. He did the same, no less hungry for the sight of her, poised to take flight. Then she did. She whirled, snatched up her trailing habit, and fled, ducking down a side path toward the house and disappearing from view. Giles inwardly laughed. That was all, after all, precisely the point in marrying a cipher. Her existence would not interfere with his more carnal pursuits. In that Francesca Rawlings had indeed proved perfect. Within minutes of seeing her, his mind had been full of fallacious thoughts about the other woman. His gypsy, who was she? Her voice came back to him, that sulky, husky, sultry sound. There was an accent there, just discernible, vowels richer, consonants more dramatic than the English were to make with them. So he mistakenly thinks that the girl that answered to Fran is Francesca. And he's now lusting after this woman that he ran into. And he's gonna think that he can marry the one woman and possibly use the other one as a mistress. And he's thinking that the first woman, he won't feel for her. He'll be able to get his heirs off of her. She can be his countess, blah, 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 and do business that way. What he doesn't know is that the girl that he ran into, the girl that he's lusting after, is the real Francesca. So what happens when he sees her for the first time, when he realizes who she is for the first time? What does she think of the marriage? What does she think of all this? You'll have to read the book. And stay tuned next week when we do the twins on a wicked dawn and on a wild night. A wicked dawn, wild night. Have a good one.